Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get straight to the insights that really help you stay informed. Today, we're really diving deep into something that seems to be everywhere: mental health. It's a phrase, we hear constantly. But even for our audience who really follows this topic, that subtle yet kind of a critical difference between mental health and mental illness, well, it can still feel surprisingly blurry sometimes. And that can lead to some real misunderstandings, can't it?
It really can. And our goal today isn't just, defining terms again. It's more about equipping you with clear, genuinely actionable knowledge, those sort of aha moments that go beyond the basics we all kind of know.
Right. So we'll explore that intricate relationship between health and illness, unpack the really complex causes behind these challenges, pinpoint how to recognize those warning signs, which are often so invisible.
And then navigate the treatments available, and crucially, look at practical daily strategies, things you can actually do to cultivate better mental well-being.
Exactly. Think of it like a journey, starting with clarity on the concepts and moving towards, empowering everyday resilience.
It's such a vital starting point, because what's really fascinating, maybe less obvious even if you know the basics, is how deeply ingrained mental health is, not just for us as individuals, but, as a society. Beyond just the dictionary definition, it covers our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It really shapes how we think, feel, act.
How we handle stress.
Exactly. How we relate to people, the choices we make. It touches every single stage of life.
That universality is huge. And I think the World Health Organization's definition gets at that broader picture really well.
Yeah.
They talk about it as
State of well-being, yeah.
Right. A state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So it's way more than just not being sick. It's about, flourishing, thriving.
Precisely. It's definitely more than just the absence of symptoms. Good mental health, well, it looks like positive emotions, functioning effectively.
Like thinking clearly, solving problems.
Yeah. That and healthy relationships, being resilient when things get tough, having self-esteem, self-acceptance. It's about feeling capable, connected, and like you're contributing something.
That difference between just feeling capable and being capable,
Yeah.
that seems key, doesn't it? Because that flips the coin over to mental illness. How do we actually define that? What really separates it from just, having a really bad week or month?
And that's where the nuance is absolutely critical. What people often misunderstand is that mental illness isn't just an extreme version of a bad day. We're talking about diagnosable conditions, conditions involving a fundamental shift in how the brain functions, its chemistry, disrupting thinking, feeling, mood, or behavior. And it's persistent, often debilitating. These are real medical conditions. They're not signs of weakness, not character flaws.
That physical health analogy really helps there, I think. You could be physically very healthy, but still catch the flu.
Hey.
Right. Or manage something chronic, like diabetes, effectively.
Exactly.
It drives home that these are legitimate medical issues, not some kind of moral failing.
Yeah.
And that understanding, it makes the distinction between mental health and illness so important.
Absolutely. They exist on a spectrum, a continuum. It's not a simple, you have this or you have that. You can actually have good mental health while managing a diagnosed mental illness through treatment that works for you.
Okay.
Just like you can have pretty poor mental health, feeling stressed, isolated, unhappy without having a diagnosable illness.
So feeling sad isn't automatically depression.
Right. Sadness is normal. Major depressive disorder is a serious illness. Same with anxiety. It's a normal, even useful emotion sometimes. But an anxiety disorder is a mental illness. Getting this distinction right is fundamental. It helps reduce stigma, makes it easier to talk about.
And encourages people to get help sooner.
Right.
Promotes that early intervention.
Exactly. It fosters empathy, and it even informs better policies and resources for everyone.
Okay, so understanding that crucial difference between health and illness really sets the stage. It definitely makes you wonder then, what are the forces actually causing these conditions?
Yeah.
Because it's almost never just one simple thing.
Oh, absolutely not. There's no single cause. It's an intricate, sometimes kind of bewildering interaction of lots of factors, almost like a complex ecosystem. So on one side, you've got the biological blueprint, genetics, family history, and the really subtle but powerful world of brain chemistry.
Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine.
Yes, but it's not just about having more or less. It's the complex interplay, how they're released, how they're taken back up, how sensitive the receptors are. That whole dynamic creates the brain's functional landscape. So, for example, disruptions in dopamine pathways might be involved in some symptoms of schizophrenia, while serotonin's role in mood is way more complex than just being the happy chemical.
So it's not just the messengers, the chemicals, but the whole structure too, the brain's wiring. I've read that brain structure differences can play a role. How significant is that physical architecture?
That's a really insightful point. Yes, differences in the size or the connectivity or even just the activity levels of specific brain regions. Think the amygdala for fear processing or the prefrontal cortex for decision-making. Those differences have been observed in people with various conditions. Now, they aren't always definitive causes, but there's strong correlations suggesting a biological vulnerability.
Okay.
And let's not forget hormones. Cortisol, the stress hormone or thyroid hormones, can have a huge impact on mood, energy, thinking. It really brings that saying to life. Genetics can load the gun, but environment often pulls the trigger. It captures that dynamic really well.
It's one thing to get the biology, but yeah, those triggers, life experiences, the environment, that's where it gets incredibly complex, isn't it?
What are some of those key external forces? That's where our psychological landscape and life experiences really come into play. Things like trauma, abuse, chronic stress, or adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. These can have profound, long-lasting effects on brain development, how we regulate emotions, even our body's stress response system. Dr. Jane Smith, who works a lot with kids, emphasizes this.
Right, she talks about how early adversity can basically reshape neurological pathways.
Exactly, affecting everything from relationships to resilience later on. And beyond those big events, there are our own cognitive patterns, things like catastrophizing.
Where you assume the absolute worst from a small setback.
Precisely. Or rumination, just endlessly chewing on negative thoughts. These can become deeply ingrained habits almost. Dr. Aaron Beck's work on cognitive therapy really highlights how our thoughts shape our feelings.
And then there's the wider world around us, the societal pressures, the environment.
Yeah.
How does that all fit in?
Those environmental factors are huge and sometimes overlooked. Socioeconomic pressures, financial stress, job insecurity, exposure to toxins, maybe a lack of strong social support.
Isolation seems like a big one.
Oh, massive. We're fundamentally social creatures. We need connection. Stressful life events like a major loss, relationship breakdown, they all contribute. Substance abuse, too. Sometimes it starts as coping, but it can definitely worsen existing conditions or even trigger new ones.
And cultural factors.
Yeah, don't discount cultural or societal influences. Systemic discrimination, stigma around mental health itself, unrealistic, societal pressures. These can all profoundly impact well-being and whether people even feel they can seek care.
So, with this whole web of contributing factors, when we look at the spectrum of common mental illnesses, what are some key categories or conditions that really show this complexity, just to give listeners a sense of the range?
Sure. Let's touch on a few key categories, keeping in mind each one is incredibly nuanced. You have mood disorders, where that baseline emotional state is significantly off-kilter. Think major depressive disorder, NAMI puts it well. A serious illness, not a weakness. It's far beyond just sadness. It often fundamentally changes how you see the world, drains motivation.
Right, it's not just feeling down.
Not at all. And that's very different from, say, bipolar disorder, where the challenge is managing these dramatic swings between intense highs, sometimes euphoric, and really debilitating lows. Then you've got anxiety disorders. These really highlight how a normal emotion like anxiety can just take over and become debilitating.
Like generalized anxiety disorder, constant worry.
Exactly. Persistent, excessive worry about everyday things, way out of proportion. Or panic disorder, these sudden, intense waves of fear with really strong physical reactions. And conditions like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they powerfully show how external events can fundamentally reshape our inner world, leading to these deep, often invisible wounds. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk said something profound. The greatest disaster that can befall us is to be wounded and not know it. It really underscores how deeply trauma can embed itself long after the event.
Wow, that quote from Dr. van der Kolk is, it's chilling, but so true. Makes you think how many people might be carrying that kind of thing without really understanding it. So, with all these potential challenges, how do we actually recognize the calls for help in ourselves, in others? Especially when, as Dr. Christine Woutier said, these concerns can be real and often invisible.
It's true, they're not always obvious on the surface. The key things to look for aren't just fleeting feelings. It's about persistence, severity, and how much these changes interfere with daily life. We're talking about patterns that are a real shift from someone's usual self, their baseline. Emotionally, that might look like persistent sadness or irritability, unusual mood swings, excessive worry that feels uncontrollable, or feelings of hopelessness, helplessness.
So easy to brush some of those off in ourselves, though, isn't it? Like, I know I've just called persistent fatigue being busy. What's the real difference there? When does it become a warning sign?
That's a crucial point. It's when these things start becoming pervasive, debilitating, affecting your ability to function. Cognitively, watch out for confused thinking, real problems concentrating that affect work or study, excessive or irrational guilt, a really pessimistic outlook, or intrusive racing thoughts. And critically, any thoughts of self-harm or suicide are immediate warning signs. That needs urgent attention right away.
Okay. And behaviorally.
Behaviorally, look for patterns like withdrawing from activities or friends they used to enjoy, significant changes in sleep, sleeping way more or way less, or appetite and weight, increased substance use, a loss of interest or pleasure in things, a noticeable decline in performance at work or school. These are all potential flags.
And you mentioned physical signs, too.
Yes, mental distress can absolutely show up physically. Unexplained aches and pains, persistent stomach issues, chronic unexplained fatigue, or low energy.
There's a really helpful, nuanced checklist. So if someone is experiencing these patterns or they notice them in someone they care about, when exactly should they reach out and where do they even start?
You should definitely seek help when symptoms are causing significant distress, when they've lasted for 2 weeks or more, or when they're interfering with your ability to function day to day. And again, if there are any thoughts of harming yourself or others, that's an emergency. Seek immediate help.
Okay, and for less urgent situations.
The first step can actually be quite simple. Talk to your primary care doctor. They can rule out any underlying physical causes first and then provide referrals to mental health professionals.
Like psychiatrists, psychologists.
Exactly. Psychiatrists are medical doctors who specialize in diagnosis, medication management, and sometimes therapy. Psychologists focus more on therapy and psychological testing. And then you have licensed therapists, counselors, social workers who provide various forms of talk therapy.
And for immediate crisis.
For immediate crises, know the resources. In the U.S. and Canada, there's the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline you can call or text 988. There's also the Crisis Text Line, where you can text HOME-E to 741-741. These are vital resources.
Vital. And just to really hammer home the importance of reaching out, I think we need to tackle some of those stubborn myths that still hold people back.
Absolutely crucial. Myth number 1. Mental illness is a sign of weakness. It is profoundly not. It's a medical condition, plain and simple. Like diabetes, like heart disease. It needs professional attention.
Right.
Myth number 2, you can just snap out of it. Telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. It completely dismisses their struggle and the need for real treatment.
It's so invalidating.
Totally. And myth number 3, maybe the most important one to bust. Mental illnesses are often treatable and highly manageable. They are not necessarily permanent life sentences. Recovery isn't just possible, it's common. Many people lead full, meaningful lives with the right support.
That is a genuinely hopeful message.
Yeah.
So for someone ready to explore that path to wellness, what do treatments typically look like? Because as you said, it's rarely one size fits all.
No, it's highly individualized. Often it's a combination of approaches. A major pillar is psychotherapy or talk therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is very common and effective. It focuses on identifying and challenging those negative thought patterns we talked about earlier. Dr. Aaron Beck put it perfectly.
The quote about how thinking affects emotions and behavior.
Exactly. The way we think about ourselves, the world, and the future profoundly affects our emotions and behavior. Then there's dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. That's excellent for building skills in mindfulness, handling intense emotions, tolerating distress. Really useful for some conditions.
And there are others too, right? Like interpersonal therapy.
Interpersonal therapy, IPT, psychodynamic therapy, family therapy. They each offer a different lens, a different focus. Finding the right fit with a therapist and approach is key.
And these therapies often go hand in hand with medication, which sometimes gets a bad rap. How do psychiatric meds actually work, and what's their role?
Yeah, medications are often essential tools, They work by helping to restore neurochemical balance in the brain. Think of them as helping to stabilize symptoms, especially when they're severe. They're definitely not a crutch, but rather a way to create a foundation that can make therapy more accessible, more effective.
Okay.
We have different classes: antidepressants like SSRIs and SNRIs for depression and anxiety, anti-anxiety meds, mood stabilizers like lithium for bipolar disorder, antipsychotics for conditions with psychosis, stimulants for ADHD. Finding the right one, the right dose, managing side effects, that requires really open, honest communication with the prescribing doctor. It's a partnership.
And beyond therapy and medication, are there other complementary things people can explore?
Absolutely. Lifestyle changes are incredibly powerful. Don't underestimate them. Regular physical activity, a balanced diet that nourishes your brain, consistent, good quality sleep, practicing mindfulness.
Yeah.
These are foundational.
Support groups.
Support groups offer huge value, that connection, that validation from people who get it because they've been there. It combats isolation. And for severe cases that haven't responded to other treatments, there are advanced options like ECT electroconvulsive therapy or TMS transcranial magnetic stimulation. They can be life-changing for some.
So the message is really about a personalized toolkit, constantly adjusted.
Precisely. Open communication with your whole care team is vital.
Okay, so let's connect all this back to everyday life. What are some proactive daily things anyone can do, even if they're not dealing with a diagnosis right now, to really cultivate a resilient mind? Because like you said, it's like tending a garden. It needs consistent care.
That's a perfect analogy, and it really is about those consistent small actions that build up over time. First off, try to embrace mindful presence. Jon Kabat-Zinn defined it so well: paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Just a few minutes of focusing on your breath can ground you, break that cycle of worrying or ruminating.
That really hits home. It's so easy to get lost in the past or future and just miss now. What else helps tend that garden?
Next up, move your body. Make movement your medicine. Hippocrates famously said, "Walking is man's best medicine." And we know now, scientifically, regular physical activity is a huge mood booster and stress buster.
And food.
Yes. Third, nourish your fuel. What you eat doesn't just affect your body, it profoundly fuels your brain. Hippocrates also said, "Let food be thy medicine. Think balanced, nutrient-rich."
Sleep is a big one for me personally. A good night really resets everything.
It's absolutely crucial. So restorative sleep is next. Matthew Walker, the sleep scientist, put it powerfully: sleep is the single most effective thing we can do to reset our brain and body health each day. Aim for that 7 and 9 hours consistently if you can.
Connection too, right?
Definitely. Actively cultivate connection and community. Remember Maslow's hierarchy. Love and belonging is a fundamental human need. Nurturing those relationships protects against isolation, builds support.
And what about managing our internal world, our mindset?
2 key things here. First, cultivate gratitude. Robert Emmons noted that gratitude is the fairest blossom which warms the heart. Simple things, maybe noting down 3 things you're grateful for each day, or just consciously expressing thanks, can really shift your perspective.
And boundaries, that feels important for mental energy.
Hugely important.
And,
Setting boundaries is crucial. Brené Brown has a great take. Boundaries are not about keeping people out, they are about letting people in appropriately. It's about protecting your time, your energy, your emotional space.
Makes sense.
And finally, consciously make time for activities you genuinely enjoy. Hobbies, passions. Dr. Viktor Frankl's work speaks to the power of choosing our attitude, finding meaning and joy, even in tough times. These aren't huge, overwhelming tasks. They're small, consistent habits that build real resilience over time.
Wow. Okay, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. We've really cut through some noise, I think, to clarify that vital distinction between mental health and illness. We explored the fascinating complex causes, learned how to spot those often hidden warning signs, and navigated the landscape of treatments, and maybe most importantly, those daily practices that help us all cultivate better mental well-being.
Yeah. And maybe as we wrap up, here's something to think about. Consider how our collective understanding, our willingness to have these open conversations about mental well-being, how that doesn't just help individuals, it truly strengthens the whole fabric of our community. So maybe ask yourself, what's one small, informed step you can take today to contribute to that shift, either for yourself or maybe for someone you know?
That's a really powerful thought to leave everyone with. And just remember, reaching out for help if you need it is always, always a sign of courage. This journey to mental wellness, it's continuous, and you are definitely not alone in it.